Barrett Sallee. I hope all is well. Welcome into the game in T-Town.
Hey, Ryan, how you doing? Yeah, I'm down here at the Media Center right now. It's a little different than a national championship media center, I'll say.
But, don't you see, media guys dressed up in costumes? Isn't that, something I see? Maybe that's just something you see on the television side of the things, but you see, a lot of media guys. I'm not sure if they're just trying to get that one shot, but it's isn't that like a trend? Am I just seeing things on television that really didn't happen in reality?
Well, I have seen a clown, but that's about it because it's kind of calm right now. We do have the what they call opening night tonight, which is basically the full-on media day that you see, for bowl games and for the national championship at State Farm Arena, which is what Phillips Arena used to be. So, we'll have that tonight, and I'm sure you'll see, all of those crazy people, show up for that. But right now, honestly, it really feels more like an SEC media days on steroids because you have, I don't know, probably maybe 500 radio tables set up between two different radio rows. And then a bunch of sets, including our CBS Sports Network and CBS Sports HQ sets in the middle with other radio stations, Fox Sports Radio with NBC Sports TV. So it's like right now an SEC Media Days on steroids with very few people here yet, but I'm sure that'll change tomorrow and the next day.
Yeah, and I was looking earlier when we talk about hotels and trying to get a night's stay over there. They've went through the roof, and I think after the two teams determine which ones were going to be there, your hometown Atlanta has just exploded, and it'll take you $385, $400 to get you a decent place to stay in Atlanta.
Yeah, it's about that. Actually, I have a friend who Airbnb'd his basement, which is basically an in-law suite, and not a very good one, for $4,000.
Oh, my Lord. Wow.
Yeah, right. So it's an interesting time down here.
So now what angles are you taking? What are you looking at? Are you trying to tie it back to the college game? What angles are you looking for? Are you just there to do some extra work for CBSSports.com?
I will grab some stuff that I will use for college, but mostly since we have, HQ, the TV channel, a lot of our writers are getting sucked up into that more this year than in years past and in other sports. So really, I'm writing a few things for the NFL team that'll come up on Thursday and Friday, and mostly my responsibility is to quite literally sit here and, if I'm needed, go do something. And I'm not going to be needed all that much. So basically here to eat, drink, and hang out.
Now what's the media spread? Does college football do it better? I know this is one day sample size, but what's the spread there? What is it like media-wise? Food-wise?
We have not had full meals yet. Right now it's only some candy, some chips, some healthy power bar type stuff. But I'd imagine, just judging from the setup in the media lounge, that there will be quite the spread put out here. 4:30 Eastern time, probably within the next hour, because that media day, the opening night thing, starts at 7 Eastern. So I would imagine the spread, based on the way they were setting up, is going to be quite entertaining.
Good. Sounds like a lot of fun. So you're going to be hanging out there all week as we cover the Super Bowl. Barrett, we're talking dynasty end, or is it continue with all these coaching things? You add everything together. We're talking about 7 coaches that could be left. It looks like the Nick Saban staff, even though nothing official from Alabama, seems to be set in stone. Where are you when all these coaching changes? Do you think Nick Saban's making a good choice? Will we look back 1 year from now and you say Nick Saban made the right choices, because this time last year we were all saying that he made the right choices, ended up being the wrong choice? So what do you think as we forecast this Nick Saban coaching carousel right now? You think he's making the right decisions of going back to a veteran-based assistant coaches?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's part of the problem, I think, was the pendulum swung too far into the recruiting direction last year, and not enough in terms of pure X's and O's prowess, and veterans certainly help that. And I think it brings it back to normal. And to an extent, I think he was kind of forced into that because of Tosh Lupoy and the fact that, he is such a great recruiter. Nick was forced to keep him on staff, and the only way to keep him on staff was to make him the defensive coordinator. And so because of that, you sort of had the equilibrium sort of go in the wrong direction. So yeah, I mean, I think the staff, if it is, who they say it is, and it'd be nice if they actually announce that for our purposes. I think it probably is the right balance. I do wonder, though, if there's a part of Saban that might be questioning his own methods, because, yes, we've had, 22 staff changes in 2 years, 3 years, or whatever it is. Clemson's had 3 staff member changes in 7 years total, so I think that might be part of Nick Saban to say, okay, well, how much of Clemson's success is due to that? How much of Clemson's success is due to, the more family atmosphere as opposed to, the more, machine-like atmosphere that you have in Tuscaloosa? I wonder if that's going to creep into his head a little bit. I think either way, Alabama's going to be successful, but, I wonder if some of these hires are kind of geared more towards guys sticking around for a longer time than these 1-year auditions that seemingly have taken place in Tuscaloosa for the last 3-4 years.
Barrett, when you look at Alabama, other than coaching turnover, what's your biggest concern for Alabama going up in 216 days in your hometown there, Atlanta, Georgia, inside that stadium? They'll play the Super Bowl on Sunday against those big, mighty Duke Blue Devils. Not basketball, but football.
Hey, Duke is fundamentally sound. That's the best you can say about them, and they're well coached. I mean,
and you got to say something nice about them, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, legitimately, David Cutcliffe is one of the best coaches in the country. He's awesome. And Ole Miss should never have fired him, but that's a different story. I think that the biggest thing, I guess, for me is, what's going to happen up front, defensive line wise. I mean, getting Davis back is huge, but it seems like when you have a guy like Quinnen and you have the kind of defensive front they have, at some point, is it going to come back and haunt them? It hasn't yet. I don't think it will. And I don't think there's really anything to worry about for Alabama in any aspect of the offseason and building towards next year, mostly because they've done it a 1,000 times before. But also, I mean, look, it's the SEC West. I don't necessarily think is the murderer's row that sometimes it's made out to be. So I would say probably the defensive front, just because, you do have to plug in some new faces in different places. But, look what happened last year. Nobody knew who Quinnen Williams was, and, now he's going to be a top 5 pick. So, but yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where you still have to wonder if, is it going to catch up to them at some point? Maybe like the coaching situation did, and the fact that they turnover coaches did.
We're talking to Barrett Sallee, CBSSports.com, CBSSports.com, also Sirius XM Channel 84, which does a lot of college football coverage. Barrett, I'm going to throw you out something that we've been asking for the last couple of days. Buying stock in SEC teams. Give me a team that you would buy stock in that would be worth more in 3 years than it is right now. Give me a team that you would buy stock, and you can go anywhere in the 14 schools in the SEC. Give me a team that you think stock will be worth more 3 years from now than it is right now, that you could make money on, that would be a good investment.
I'd say Texas A&M, because of the money they've invested in that program really since Manziel got there. And you could even say, when they announced that they were going to the SEC, and the fact that they had some success last year, I think that, it's a much different 9-4 than you've seen in years past from Texas A&M. And, I think in terms of Alabama's primary threat, I think they'll be the primary threat next year to Alabama. Now, I don't necessarily think that means an awful lot, but if they're at that level in year 2 in Jimbo Fisher's era, then what are they going to be like in year 4, year 6, year 8, year 10? So, Texas A&M to me has always been one of those sleeping giants. It's always been one of those programs that has never been able to capitalize on what it should be. I think they're on their way to do that now. And so, I think, buying stock, it would be that, because it's hard to trust Gus at Auburn. It's hard to trust LSU that still can't, seemingly find a passing game. The Mississippi schools are who they are, and Arkansas is what it is. So, I'd buy stock in Texas A&M because I think if it weren't for the Nick Saban problem, then Texas A&M could be a national championship caliber team sooner rather than later.
All right, so Barrett, on the other side of that, what would be a worst investment that you could make? What's one team that you would not buy stock in that you think will be worse value than it is right now compared to 3 years from now? 3 years from now, it'll be worse than it is right now. What would be the worst investment you could make in the SEC?
Oh, man, 3 years is a very long time. LSU, probably. I'd also consider Auburn, but, 3 years from now, Auburn could have dipped all the way back down and come back up because that's how Auburn seems to roll, right? So I'd probably go LSU just because I don't trust Ed Orgeron. I think, the Fiesta Bowl appearance this year was more or less because of smoke and mirrors and the fact that the SEC West was down, and really Joe Burrow didn't have to do an awful lot with his arm. I do think that'll change. I do think you'll have to find a way for LSU to be more dynamic in the future. And I think Ed Orgeron still, the criticism of the last offseason, I think is still true. Is he building a program that is comparable to the Les Miles era LSU teams that, play one way and only one way? Or, is he more adaptable? Is he more flexible? Does he want to, run an offense that is more flexible and able to win shootouts? Nothing this year suggested that he was, even though they were successful. They didn't have to do that, So it's hard to buy LSU as anything more than what LSU, was the final 4 years under Les Miles and really what they've been under Ed Orgeron, a pretty good program, but not a great program. It's almost like that they're the Michigan of the SEC, the Harbaugh of the SEC, willing to do one thing really, really well, win you 9 or 10 games, but anything beyond that is just unrealistic.
Barrett, let me ask you about Georgia here for a couple of minutes, because Kirby is almost in 2 years, he's almost created this unreasonable expectation. How many more times do you get Alabama on the mat? I mean, they had them knocked out twice, and Alabama found a way to get up off the mat and go and win the game. If you're a Georgia fan, are you questioning, or are you just going, it's going to take a little bit of time? When you look at Georgia, give me the state of the overall evaluation 3 years from now. Where do you think Georgia will be?
Oh, I think that they're at 3 years from now, I wouldn't necessarily say they'll be where Clemson and Alabama are right now, because Clemson and Alabama will probably still be there, and at some point that table is going to get too crowded. But I would say that they're going to be, in that playoff mix more times than not. I would say that maybe even in some cases they're in the playoff and Alabama is not. If Georgia can beat Alabama in the SEC championship game and the chips fall in a certain direction, it's not a guarantee that Alabama would win or get in with a loss. So I would say that, they're going to be, behind the two premier programs, because from a longevity standpoint, they still wouldn't have had that time to elevate themselves to that level. But in terms of top-end success year in and year out, I would say without a doubt that they're going to be comparable to those two. I think Georgia wins a national championship within the next 4 years.
So you think Georgia wins a national championship in the next 4 years?
Yes, without a doubt.
But that SEC East has got to be getting better. I mean, you got like what's happening with Dan Mullen down at Gainesville, do you? And then you talk about Knoxville. I mean, they're going to be bigger hurdles than what they've been in the last couple of years.
Well, sure. And Florida's going to be really good too. But think about where Florida is compared to Georgia. Kirby Smart, when he took over, had the exact same problem that Dan Mullen had, a roster that was uber talented but underdeveloped. And it took Kirby a year to get it right. And, Dan Mullen obviously, got it good enough this year to get to, a Peach Bowl and a New Year's Six Bowl. But the problem still exists. I mean, they have to work their tails off this offseason, to develop that roster. They have to recruit at a much higher level. I mean, Florida typically recruits well, but compare that to what Georgia has done since since Kirby got there. So, Florida's going to be good, but it's elevating yourself from, that good level to the great level. It's a big hurdle, and Florida's going to get there, I think, but it's not something that happens overnight. And think about how hard it's been for Georgia, suffering some, tragic losses and awful losses and gut punches and still finding ways to win, but still having those hiccup moments. LSU was a hiccup moment. So, the path is a little easier in the East just in general. But then when you look at, who they're going to go up against, I mean, I'd still say Florida's the only team that is really a threat. I don't think Jeremy Pruitt at Tennessee, is going to be a threat in the near future at all. I don't trust Missouri. I don't trust Kentucky. Vandy, and South Carolina is just sort of topped out. So, to me, it just feels like it's going to be Georgia, Florida in the East, and you're going to see Alabama versus Georgia a lot in the coming years, here in Atlanta.
Well, and the one thing that we're making here in Tuscaloosa, in a typical year, then maybe the SEC is back where it used to be like 7-8 years ago, then they could make Nick Saban pay for all these changes. But with that easy schedule, I don't think anybody can close the gap on Alabama. They didn't this year and look at the problems that we're learning about that was inside that locker room from a coaching standpoint. Didn't have a lot of coaches. I mean, you pretty much had Nick Saban calling them out last week with relationship building. Didn't build relationships quite well, and I think that's cautious area that Nick Saban, I'm not sure if he wants to go into that uncharted water. You start calling out assistant coaches, they'll start calling out you, and they'll really tell the scenes behind. But when you look at who's going to close the gap, I mean, even though the foundations look like they've got some micro cracks in it, who can expose those in the SEC with that schedule?
I don't know if anybody can.
That's the thing.
Texas,
so they're really not cracks.
Yeah, I mean, I think Texas A&M might be that team, but it's going to take a little while for them to do that. Yeah, I mean, it's even if Alabama does struggle for Alabama is way different than struggle for everybody else. So yeah, I mean, it's I don't think they have anything to worry about in the short term. But again, I mean, if those cracks continue to develop and they continue to build, then I mean, I think a team like Texas A&M could certainly be one that takes advantage at some point, not anytime soon though.
Always appreciate you for being a part of the show. You can connect with him. The best way to do it is straight up on the Twitter account. He'll be tweeting out of the media day coverage of the Super Bowl. I mean, I always look, I don't know why, but I always see like, Barrett, you know how college guys, media guys can be a little bit stiff at times?
A little bit.
The pro side is more like relax. Like, it's not uncommon to go in there and see a guy that is warm conditions covering the NFL will be like flip-flops and shorts and a T-shirt.
Oh, yeah. I've already seen a few of those for sure.
Yeah, and you go to the college press box, it's like suit and tie, suit and tie, suit and tie.
Oh,
yeah.
So stuffy.
Yeah, I got you. Barrett Sallee, connect with him straight up on the Twitter account, @Barrett Sallee. As always, thank you for your time, Barrett. Have a great day, man.
All right. Thanks, Ryan. You too.